Hi, I'm Chef Jamie Vincent Bordonaro, and this is Pursuit of Passion, where I share with you mouth-watering recipes, tips, and techniques to give you the tools to create memorable meals for you and your loved ones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Pursuit of Passion. After a little bit of a social media sabbatical, I am back with a beautiful, bold butternut squash bisque, perfect for this fall season. This butternut squash bisque is not only satisfying and sumptuous, but also totally vegetarian and can even be vegan. We will first start out by making an incredibly aromatic vegetable stock. This stock is so wonderfully delicious and therapeutic and aromatic that you can quite literally take a glass of it before dinner every evening. The stock will be used to then blend with our roasted butternut squash. How are we doing it? We're going to delicately wrap our butternut squash that we've halved, seeded, drizzled with a little extra virgin olive oil, and packed with onion, carrot, thyme, rosemary, and sage. Roast in the oven in its little foil pouch, which will help to steam the butternut squash and also prevent caramelization, which would add a touch of bitterness and additional sweetness, which we don't really need in this case. We want to keep it as pure and aromatic and fragrant as a butternut squash bisque can be. Let's cook. Let's get right into our ingredients for this butternut squash bisque. We'll start with the base and the foundation of our vegetable stock. We have fresh onions, carrots, celery, that's our mirepoix, and fennel for a beautiful aromatic addition. And of course, any vegetable broth looking for some enticing aroma would not be complete without our fresh herbs. That's thyme, rosemary, and sage. Moving on to the components for the star of our show, that's our butternut squash bisque. We have beautiful butternut squash, fresh carrot, white onion, rosemary, thyme, and sage, all to be enveloped in aluminum foil, roasted and steamed to delicious butternut squash bisque perfection. And I would be remiss to fail to mention and explore the ingredients to the garnish to this dish. Our pumpkin seed brittle. We have pumpkin seeds that will be roasted, toasted, a little bit of salt. We have some salt, some sugar, corn syrup, baking soda, and of course, blue butter. Brilliance. All right, the first step to our butternut squash bisque is the base of it all. That's that fortified, magnificent liquid that we call vegetable stock. So we will take all of our beautiful aromatic ingredients and turn them into a beautiful aromatic ethereal broth of deliciousness. Put the fragrant herbs, thyme, rosemary, bay leaf, sage into the pot. We'll start by breaking down our fennel. The tops are fantastically aromatic and will add an amazingly delicious lightness to the broth. We'll cut those up and put those in the broth. The fennel, don't worry about the core in this case. We're not biting down into it at the end result. It will just simply help to add flavor to the broth. So cut them up in half and in sixths and add them to the pot. Peel our carrots because, quite frankly, carrot peels do not add any additional deliciousness or flavor to the pot. So remove them and have some clean, freshly peeled carrots to work with. We will ultimately cut our peeled carrots into medium to large chunks, trying to keep everything relatively the same so that they cook evenly and release all of their flavors within the same amount of time as the other vegetables. Moving on to our celery. So it's very important. We'll cut off the root end, which will leave an unpleasant taste. And then we want to divide up our celery stems, keeping in mind that the leaves attached to the celery tend to become bitter with long term cooking. So we will remove those leaves, discard them, set them aside. The lighter yellowish leaves you can technically use as a garnish in some cases, but for now we'll just stick to our broth purpose. And that is why we will just simply cut the stems and the meaty ends of the celery into large chunks, similar to the carrots, leaving the leaves behind. And once you realize you may need a bigger vessel, well, go ahead and transfer everything into a larger stock pot situation to manage your stock needs. Onto the onions. Again, the peels do not offer a great deal of fantastic flavor, so let's go ahead, top and tail our onions, give them a thorough peel, and then we can cut them into decently large chunks to mimic the other vegetables in the stock so that everything cooks evenly and beautifully and releases all of their flavors within relatively the same amount of time. Once all of our ingredients are placed neatly into our stock pot, we will pour on enough water to cover by about an inch. Bring that pot up to a simmer, and once it simmers, we will set a 45-minute timer, which will measure the appropriate amount of time to simmer your vegetable stock to extract the maximum optimal amount of flavor and eventually strain, yielding a delicious aromatic vegetable stock, which will become the base of our incredibly aromatic, delicious, brilliant butternut squash bisque. And now for the ingredients to the actual bisque itself. Let's start with a fresh carrot. Peel that peel, which we know doesn't offer us any phenomenal flavor. And we will cut it into segments that will fit into the beautiful, aromatic, essential envelope of aluminum foil that will encapsulate all the incredible aromas and flavors in our butternut squash process. We are dividing our aromatics into two piles because, of course, we have two halves of this beautiful butternut squash that we will pack together with these aromatics and herbs and fragrances to roast together to create a beautiful base for our butternut squash bisque. Onto our onion, which we simply cut in half and peel, and then cut into quarters. Half of this onion will be used to fortify our beautiful vegetable stock, and then a few wedges will be included in the actual package, which we will roast together with our butternut squash to intensify and enhance the bisque. And we will simply separate our rosemary, our thyme, our sage, into 2 separate piles to prepare our beautiful butternut squash for roasting. Now it's on to the main event of our butternut squash bisque. That's the butternut squash. So let's cut off the root end of our stem, head down to the bulbous area, and we're going to begin cutting down vertically, being very careful with the other hand to sturdy the butternut squash without putting it in harm's way. Cut directly down the center, put it up vertically, and you can make a simple clean cut down the center. Scoop out the seeds with a spoon of your choosing on both sides, and that will leave us with 2 beautifully cleaned butternut squash halves ready for roasting. Let's place our aromatics, onions, and carrots into the pockets of our butternut squash bulbs. Top with our thyme and sage. Drizzle with a little bit of neutral canola oil that will lubricate our butternut squash while roasting. Season with some kosher salt, of course. And then it's time to wrap up our butternut squash aromatic bulbs and stems in some aluminum foil, which will help during the roasting process to steam the aromatics, creating additional flavor and also tenderizing our finished product. Place them in a 350-degree oven for approximately 30 to 40 minutes. Our vegetable stock is simmering, so we'll set our timer for 45 minutes to allow that to finish. And on to our pumpkin seed brittle. Let's place our water as well as our sugar into the pot. In addition, we will be adding 1 tablespoon of kosher salt with 1/2 cup of light corn syrup. Whisk all the ingredients together and place the heat to a medium to medium high temperature, and we will let that come up to a simmer and eventually start to brown. You can see it simmering nicely here. We will use a damp paper towel, or if you have on hand a pastry brush dipped in water, that will help to caress the sides of the bubbling mixture to prevent any scorching on the side. And we will continue to allow this to simmer until we start to see some coloration in the mixture. Now the caramelization is clearly omnipresent. So we will gently mix the mixture around to create even heating. And once we've reached the desired color and temperature, we add in our pumpkin seeds. Remember, this is a very quick process, so we have our pumpkin seeds, our butter, and the last ingredient will be our baking soda. Once you add the baking soda in, the reaction starts to happen. It will start to seize up very quickly. So be prepared. Have your clear cutting board or non-stick surface ready to go. Spread the brittle as evenly as possible, keeping in mind this is setting on the moment, but you are ready and ready to go. Here we go. Allowing it to set. Once our 45 minutes is up, we know our vegetable stock has had sufficient time to infuse all of its flavor, and we can then remove the vegetables from our stock pot and strain the stock through a fine strainer. In this case, I'm using my handy dandy chinois. You can use a colander at home. If you don't have a chinois, that's quite all right. And ooh, the flavors are fantastic. And now it's time for our sommelier selection. This week we have a beautiful Lieu dit Chenin Blanc from the Santa Ynez Valley in California. It is a 2021 vintage, absolutely delicate and light, but yet carries with it a supreme citrus delicacy that perfectly counteracts all of the richness and balances out our butternut squash bisque. It also offers with it a beautiful spice note to it that will stand up to all of the nuances of this incredible dish. Cheers. Now that our brittle has settled, listen for that beautiful crunch crack factor. Fantastic. What a sublime preparation to garnish our bisque. Absolutely delightful. And it looks like our butternut squash is tender and ready to be placed into our blender for blending. Open up the package and you'll see this aromatic, incredibly enticing butternut squash, beloved centerpiece. Let's remove the herbs, which have already delivered their aromatic essence. Scoop in the onion and carrot, ready to be blended. And once we remove the little bits of herbs remaining, we can just simply scoop out the butternut squash meat like a beautiful gelato in the wintertime. Ladle in about half the amount in terms of the ratio of vegetable broth to the butternut squash mixture. Add some seasoning in the way of kosher salt and blend thoroughly. Give it a taste and woo! I think we're very close to our desired result. A pinch of kosher salt to round out the seasoning should do the trick. A touch more vegetable stock to ensure that the viscosity is appropriate for this preparation, and we'll give it one last strain through a chinois in order to optimize the final texture of the butternut squash bisque. Plating, as always, is as you desire. A simple bowl will suffice. Smoothen it out for presentation. Add on a few pieces of your pumpkin seed brittle for texture and flavor, along with a scattering of some freshly toasted pumpkin seeds to garnish for texture and flavor. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope this recipe and these techniques have inspired you to create a rendition of this soup, this bisque, for your own. Please enjoy and be well on your pursuit of passion. Thank you.
Switch. 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 Switch.